for joining us if you are immediately after UB's 84-63 loss to number 2 Iowa State, their second straight road game against a top 10 opponent on the road. They went to Cameron Indoor at Duke beginning of this weekend, fell by 23 points, came to, I don't even know the name of Iowa State's place, played Iowa State on the road, kept it close for 75% of the game, really. The difference in this one was 2 big runs from the Cyclones, one in the middle of the first half, a 15-0 run based on perimeter shooting with Jaren Skeet on the bench, and then an 11-0 run in the middle of the second half after UB had pulled within 1 that really pretty much took the fight out of the Bulls. It is Monday night. Football season is over, but we are going to keep our Bulls and Beers going on Monday nights. What we're going to do is alternate basketball shows every week. So this week we'll do the men, next week we'll do the women, and we'll continue that way. Tonight, obviously, we're coming in right after the men's loss to Iowa State, which I think had a lot of good signs, had some troubling signs, but 2 consecutive games against top 10 opponents. You're just looking for small successes, really, and they're coming home to a pair of winnable games against Binghamton and Montana State. On top of that, we do want to talk this hour about the whole rest of the season. It's the first chance we've gotten to talk about men's basketball at all this year. Now that I've talked for a bit, John or Robbie, do one of you want to start with? Let's start with Iowa State, but you can go wherever you want if you like. John, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, seeing as it's Bulls and Beers, I'll just get my beer cracked. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, I kind of had the same expectations going into tonight that I did against Duke, more or less. I want UB to come out, play well. I kind of expected that they would lose. And honestly, being down only by 1, I think it was with 14 minutes or something like that to go, that was a definite win in my book. A lot of positives, still things to work on. I mean, Iowa State's number 4 for a reason. They're a team that last year realistically should have probably been the Elite 8 or Final 4, and myself, like most people included, got their brackets busted thanks to them. They're a team that, yeah, we'll be seeing them late in March, late in the tournament. Yeah, that's what I got to say on them. So,
all right. Yeah,
next.
Robbie, I don't want to keep you waiting. I have some things to say, but why don't you go ahead? Everybody, you've seen Robbie's name on the site. This is his debut on one of our video hangouts.
How's it going, everyone?
What's your thoughts on this one, Robbie?
Overall, a lot better than the rest of the season, I can say that. For the first time this season, I think they finally looked like a MAC contending team at points, and there's a lot of positives to take from that. I wish ball movement was still a little bit better, not enough assists still. And overall, it was a very positive showing, especially in the second half. Skeet turned off all the haters. It was great. And yeah, just a good game all around.
That Skeet run in the second half really scored 11 points in the first 6 minutes. Mute yourselves, guys, if we're getting some info there. Skeet had those 11 points in the first 6 minutes, and really, he started the game 0 for 3, and people were ragging on him, and I understand it. Skeet has not. Wow. Oh, hi, Drew. Your name did not show up as Drew in the options. Skeet started out 0 for 3 in those first 6 minutes. Wasn't looking too good. He got pulled. UB lost that senior leader on the perimeter defense. UB was without Rodell Wigginton for 31 minutes in this game. He only played 9 minutes. Without those two, UB's defense looks much, much different. And with Skeet out, that's when Iowa State went on that 15-0 run in the middle of the first half. Comes out in the second half and goes bananas. Gets UB going, keeps them within 4 for a couple stretches. Obviously, UB got within 1. That was a real key stretch for UB, and it had people talking. It had some of the more national sports personalities on Twitter, not just us and not just our Mid-American Conference blog world going. I was impressed with Raheem Johnson for his first game back from injury. We can say more about that. I do want to say really what what I want to say the most about this game is that George Niang, I can only think of 2 games ever since I've been following UB since 2002 where an opposing player has played better than Niang did today. And those were both Martin Sammarco in that season where he went, I think it was 2006 or so, toe for toe against Eric Moore, just a pair of 3-point battles. He hit like 44 in one game and 31 in another. Other than that, UB's played Jimmer Fredette, UB's played Frank Kaminsky, Hashim Thabit, and I can't really remember anyone else. They've played Duke. They played Duke just the other day. They've played some big-time schools. They played Pitt when they were number 2. I don't remember any of the players on that team. That was one of the best games I've ever seen. And somebody on our Twitter said that Niang might be the best player in the country, and I certainly believe it today. He normally doesn't hit threes, and he was 4 for 6 today on his way to 30 points and 12 rebounds. Drew, welcome to the show. We're going to get off of Iowa State and talk about the team as a whole pretty quickly, I think, but do you have anything to say about tonight? Uh-oh. Drew, we cannot hear you. And you're not muted. Well, I don't know what Drew would say about Iowa State because he wasn't really in the game thread. I was prepared for a break. Let's see. Raheem Johnson came back from injury. He only finished with 4 points, but on only 4 shots. I'm all right with that. Big thing is he finished with 7 rebounds, and he only played 16 minutes. It didn't feel like that. It felt to me like he played with more. Looking at the other stats, until late in the game, UB picked up some foul shots late, but still only finished with 12 shots and 22 points in the paint out of their 63. I might like to see more, especially when you're only shooting 8 of 30 from the perimeter. But really, the last 10 minutes of the game, I'm willing to see CJ Massenberg after his strong start at the beginning, not just in points, but he had a steal and an assist or 2 and a couple of rebounds. He really faded. He's a guy that's really impressed this year. If we want to move beyond Iowa State, Drew, can we hear you now? Test. Nope. Sorry, Drew. Bummer. All right. Drew will join us next week, I imagine, or perhaps the week after. Robbie or John, CJ Massenberg, 17 points against Duke. On the whole season, he's been impressive. He's certainly my most surprised player through these first half dozen or so games.
Most surprised, I'd say he's probably one of the best players on the team through his first stretch of the season. Especially considering I figured he probably wouldn't see much time on the floor, and then in the exhibitions he came out of nowhere, lit up the scoreboard, and here he is now contributing. I don't have his minutes. Does anyone have his minutes? How much he played tonight?
Today?
It's roughly around 20 or so.
Yeah, he had 23 minutes today. But he was 2 for 11 and 2 of 8 from 3 after starting the game 2 for 3. Yeah. So he missed his final 8 shots, and 5 of them were from distance. So that's not ideal.
I guess it happens. I mean, 17 points of Duke down to 6 tonight, and I think that was a thing that Danielle Marshall and Jim Weitzel had mentioned a lot when talking about Massenberg, was that he's going to have ups and downs throughout the season. So you have the up at Duke, then you have a little bit more of a lull here against Iowa State. Another freshman that I've been pretty impressed with so far that has kind of met my expectations is Nick Perkins. He had a pretty quietly solid night. I guess that's the best way to put it. I mean, 9 points, 4 rebounds. Had 2 real slick layups towards the end of the game.
Sorry, thought you were done.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Perkins doesn't have that kind of freak of nature body that we saw from Javon McCray or that we see in a kind of smart kind of athleticism. He's a strong dude. And I've been on the fence about his three-point shooting, but his 3 that he made in the first half today was picture perfect. Neither of you guys ever actually saw Yassine Adbehi play, but at B he had that smooth stroke from the very top of the key, and UB found a way to get him open once or twice a game for it. And it was always good for a couple points when UB needed it. Robbie, I'm going to bring up a topic that I know you're ready to talk about. I know that you always are. UB had 8 assists in this game. They only have 22 in their last 3 games. They're averaging 7 a game. Real poor day against St. Bonaventure, real poor day against Duke. Only 8 assists in this one. I thought at times the ball movement was good, the off-ball movement was good. They look like a team that wants to isolate the ball carrier, but the guys off the ball move all right at times. That stretch at the end of the first half I know bothered you, where the defense was holding strong, and for about 2.5 minutes they did nothing but jack up threes. I quietly like Blake Hamilton as the primary ball handler sometimes, even when Lamonte's on the floor. We can talk about that. But I know you specifically have called out the lack of assists and kind of the one-on-one ISO game. I should let you speak.
Yeah, if you definitely go back to the Old Dominion game, which was definitely like the first major game on our schedule. A lot of ISO, no ball movement whatsoever. It was ugly. We saw a little bit of improvement with that at St. Joe's, and then ever since they've been really wanting to try and move the ball. It's just the shot selection isn't there. Especially during the latter half of the second half today, it just felt like they were just for whatever. They wanted to move it around, and that's great. It's just we got to find the shot selection. That's the biggest problem right now.
Yeah, I want to know what you guys think of this. Blake Hamilton did not have a good day shooting. He hit a 3 late that makes his numbers look a little better, but late in the game he was 1 for 7 and 0 for 4 from 3. But he did have 2 assists, and for a long time he was the only person other than Bearden to have multiple assists. He pulled down a couple rebounds. He did commit a bunch of fouls, although the one was that dribbling foul that he was called offensively. I really like the look of the big-bodied Blake Hamilton dribbling the ball, C.J. Massenberg moving around off ball, kind of getting the pass, and if something's not open, he hands it back. And Lamonte Bearden, who's a threat to dribble drive from anywhere, moving around on the arc, trying to stay open. I think the offense looks good that way, mostly because Hamilton he doesn't really stand still very much. Am I making this up? Oates has said that he thinks he can play Hamilton anywhere from point guard all the way to small forward if he needs to. And I've really liked the look of Hamilton lately. I'd like his shooting to come along, but in terms of how he moves in the offense and how he uses his size, I'm a big fan of his.
I can definitely see Hamilton playing a lot of different positions. I was very surprised with how he's played in the post so far. He's had the last 2 games have been tough for him. I believe he shot like 2 for 11 at Duke as well. So the shooting hasn't been there. I think if he can pick that up, he's going to be a pretty lethal, combo guard type deal, in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. John, bigger picture stuff. UB's kind of in a spot, much like the football team right now, where it's early. They haven't really pulled out a real impressive win. They've been a little bit tighter than they probably should have against Canisius. Even if Canisius has improved, I'm unwilling to be. It was a thrilling game, but I'm unwilling to be too happy with overtime wins over Canisius. It should not be that close. St. Bonaventure game almost pulled out a game they didn't deserve to win, but they didn't. What is your feeling on this team right now? How are you feeling just in general? Obviously, there's lots of turnover over the offseason. We've talked that to death. But big picture, we've got enough games in that I think we can start to see what the character of this team is, and there are things that aren't going to go away, either things that are going well that maybe, or things that are going poorly. We're getting to the point where maybe some of these things aren't going to regress back to the mean.
Mm-hmm. I think at this point the team, because so many people are new, they're still really in the process of learning how to play with each other. And I mean, I think it was even Bobby Hurley's first year. He brought up there was a bunch of new guys that came in, and it took the team some time to really gel, get together, and function. properly. I know there have been some games where shots just haven't been falling, defense hasn't been as good as it should have been, and so on and so forth. But I mean, these last two games, you can kind of throw out the window when it comes to that type of stuff. I mean, when you're playing Duke and number 4 Iowa State, it's just going to happen. I actually didn't get to see much of the Canisius game. I was at a family function while I was home, and I was following along on Twitter, kept refreshing that one. I did end up watching it on replay, but I wish I could have watched live. A game like that is really good for a team. It helps them learn how to win. When you can pull out close, tight games like that, that experience will rear its head later in MAC play. You know, when we're down 2 to Akron or whoever, that experience will come back later and it'll help. As a whole, where we're sitting right now, we're what, 4-5, 4-5, yeah, 4-5. If I can count. It's about where I expected them to be. I expected them to probably come out of the out of conference schedule maybe at 500, maybe a game or two over 500. Nothing spectacular like last year, where our only losses were to the 2 ranked teams, Kentucky and Wisconsin.
And Bonaventure.
Oh, and Bonaventure. Ugh.
Yeah.
I don't count that. I don't count that one, just like I don't count the women's soccer Cornell loss in their championship season. But that's beyond the point. But yeah, right now I'm taking everything the out of conference schedule is all about the team kind of coming together, figuring out who they are, and figuring out what works best for them, so they can figure out how to win games. So really, what matters for me is MAC play. So January 5th, I want to see this team. That's where I want to see the improvement. You know, start to go up like this. Obviously, drawing Akron in the first MAC game isn't ideal, but that's my point for where I want to see the team really start to improve. All the out of conference games are, to me, it's just the team. I honestly could have cared less if we lost all of these games. All I want is the team figure out how to win, figure out how to play together. Because if they can do that and figure that out now in the out-of-conference schedule, then once they hit MAC play, you know, then they can really do their thing. Otherwise, if they still haven't figured it out and they're still trying to figure out MAC play, then MAC wins are going to be even tougher to come by than they have been.
Yeah. I can't argue with much of that. I last year felt like with all the turnover, losing Javon McRae, losing Gerard Oldham, losing Freelove. Last year I was like, yeah, well, if they get it together by conference play, I'll be happy. That's how I feel this year. I have been pleasantly surprised with the defense. I really think that Ikenna Smart got a bad rap for how he did against Wright from St. Bonaventure. I think a lot of people were ready to pile on UB's interior defense, but I really like the look of Smart on the defensive end, and I think he's improving pretty quickly on the offensive end. And Raheem Johnson today really impressed me on the defensive end. He looked much smarter than he used to be in general. I don't think he punched anyone today, which is nice. And I'm glad to see that. You know, that post defense will be pretty important. Toledo's Nathan Booth right now is averaging 19 points per game. They're going to be a handful. Akron, of course, is always tough, even if folks have graduated. I think Jimmy Hall is still around at Kent State. There's some real good big men in the MAC right now, which makes it only more impressive that UB's had forwards win Conference Player of the Year 2 straight years right now. I've liked the interior defense, though. Robbie, if our audience doesn't know, John and Robbie are 2 writers who are on campus right now. Otherwise, we're all out of town. And I think it's fair to say that Robbie's a little more plugged into the kind of the team right now and the vibe around campus. John is a senior and has the real world coming up on him pretty quickly. Robbie's got time with his geology major just to play with rocks. Robbie, do you get much of a feel from being just a little closer and seeing body language and stuff from kind of the True Blue, other than Jaren Skeet, who's kind of leaders of this team? And what if that started to gel or change? I think that Lamonte Bearden's kind of run into the middle and throw things up has gotten a little better, so I'd like to think that he trusts other people a little more now. I could be making that up. I'm not sure what I'm asking you, but it's your turn to talk.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to ask me. So
find something to say, please.
Okay. Well, it sounded like you were going towards like what it seemed like from a student standpoint where the team was at points, like the energy that we were feeling. Sure, we'll go with that. I think the campus has definitely embraced this team a lot better than this time last year. The True Blue section was for a lot of the home games, and it was the first time I've heard people talk in the hallways about the basketball game and that people want to go to the basketball game. And it's been crazy that it's an hour before tip-off and half the student section is full almost every time. So it's crazy what one MAC championship and an NCAA tournament bid will do, just in that sense. Yeah.
All right. I feel like we should have more to talk about, guys. We've got 9 games under our belts.
I'll throw something out there.
Go ahead.
I will echo your sentiment earlier that I'm actually quite happy that Raheem Johnson is back. I think the team really missed him those first few games, especially Old Dominion and St. Joseph's, and even Bonaventure too. They really could have used him inside. And he seemed, from comparing Raheem Johnson to last year to Raheem Johnson from what I saw today, I think Oates is probably just trying to ease him back in and get him into playing shape. Obviously, he's coming off a stress fracture in his foot, and that's no fun. And it's a painful, it's a tough injury to get back from. But that being said, if Smart keeps on the track that he is and he keeps improving game by game, that pairing of him and of Smart and Johnson down low is going to hopefully be pretty effective once MAC play comes around. And if one of those guys really starts to figure out how to score consistently, then watch out, because then that opens up a whole other dimension for the offense. If you got Johnson or Smart down low that you can rely on, to just feed them and let them get layups, a la Justin Moss or Javon McCray in years past. That'll open up so much more, and hopefully more open 3-point shots for Jaren Skeet to hopefully not do fadeaways when he's standing by himself.
Yeah, Smart and Perkins combined are only averaging 9 points a game. Johnson obviously just started today, so he doesn't even show up on the stat sheet. I guess he's averaging 4 points a game. You say it, and it's such a no-brainer, but as you're saying that boy, would it be nice to get some offensive production from the forwards. You kind of think about, yeah, that would be really, really nice. One thing I like about this team is they have done a good job of they still get the ball into the rim. That was a real hallmark, a real change from Reggie Witherspoon to Bobby Hurley. Was the team attacked the rim much more? And I said for 2 years, in 10 years of Reggie Witherspoon, the only player who ever got to the rim really consistently in his last 10 years was Rodney Pierce, and Turner Battle did it a bit too. But really, it was Rodney Pierce and no one else, and it was so antithetical to Reggie's pass the ball around the arc kind of option and find a pass for a post guy to maybe make a one-on-one play. And when Bobby Hurley came around and everybody's a liability to go at the rim at any time. It was really a breath of fresh air. And we're seeing that continue this year. I'm glad for that. Hamilton has shown an ability to drive to the rim. Bearden is obviously who he is. Skeet doesn't seem to want to right now, but Riddell Wigginton can get in. He's a very strong rebounder on the offensive glass. UB did well on the glass today, even without Wigginton, which was a bit of a surprise to me. The final split, UB was only out-rebounded. Well, it was 43-36, but it was not that big. Even after the game was out of hand, it was within 3 or 4. But both teams held real well on the defensive glass, and so I wonder what could have happened if Riddell Wigginton was around for the offensive side today. But point being, I'm pretty happy with kind of the shape of the offense. I think I agree that I'd like more passing, but it's nice to see the ball continue to get to the rim, even without Justin Moss, without Shannon Evans. I don't want to talk about them for very long. But if, as you say, if Smart and Johnson can start to score offensively, and Perkins has shown that he can, he's got to bring it for a full 40 minutes, kind of like some of like any young player. I think Massenberg hasn't yet played a full, complete game. Even that Duke game, he wasn't really around for the first 25 minutes. I think consistency will do a lot towards getting chemistry on the team as well. I don't know if I've got any more, guys. I was surprised to see Rakicevic get into the game today, even for a moment. Oh, Robbie, I'm sorry. Robbie, I was surprised to see Rakicevic. Now say what you were going to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say something about Raheem and Ikena.
Go ahead.
The thing with Ikena is he's really starting to develop a really good hook shot. I think he's going to be a real threat with that, especially down in the post and MAC play. If he can just, develop, that post presence that he needs. He's this really big guy, but he seems like he can be dominated at times by other people. As for Raheem, his defense is completely better than last year. And his defense was good as it is. He's showing a little bit more of an offensive game, and I agree with you. They're going to be a 1-2 punch if they can just, get a little more consistent with things.
Yeah, I guess I brushed over why I thought that I kind of got a bit of a bad rap from that St. Bonaventure game, and I don't think that he played that poorly in the post. I think he just got beat by a more experienced guy in Bonaventure's Dion Wright, who is a senior, has that savvy footwork, kind of is operating a little more on reflex. I think that Smart has that positioning down. He's rarely caught out of position. I go back to the first 2 years of Xavier Ford, who was a little bit more of a, even at the time under Reggie, a high-energy kind of forward guy, not necessarily a post-up player, but Ford would get lost in the defensive post and just totally get lost. Smart doesn't get lost at all. He knows where he's supposed to be, and I thought during the Bonaventure game he just got beat by a more technically skilled post player, and I think that's a much smaller battle and much smaller learning curve than just making sure you're in the right position and not following too aggressively. I would have been interested to see what he could have done if he didn't pick up 2 quick fouls today, and obviously Raheem picked it up and played very well. The other thing I want to say about Smart, as you talk about heading into MAC play, 6'10", a legit 6'10", is big enough in the MAC. Justin Moss was only 6'9". Javon McCray was maybe 6'8". He was probably 6'7".
Moss was 6'7".
Oh, well, okay. I feel like Moss was taller than McCray, but I doubt McCray was only 6'6".
He might have been. That might have been just something that was skewed.
Yeah.
Moss was big. He was like 240 pounds, though. So
that's true.
No, I think Moss and McCray were fairly similar in size. I think the only difference between the two is that Javon, when you looked at his upper body, he was more built in his upper body than Justin Moss was, but they were about the same height, same weight, but different players completely in terms of physicality.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just straight up measurables, they were nearly identical.
Okay, well, that's what I get for watching their careers from a computer screen. Point being, those guys were able to dominate the MAC low post with just a lot of strength and determination at 6'7", 6'8". Other teams in the MAC, there's always a couple 6'10" guys. I think Zeke Marshall was the last true 7-footer in the MAC. Zeke Marshall at Ohio. Akron? I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Where did somebody Google where Zeke Marshall played and make me feel like an idiot? It was Akron. It had to be Akron. Anyway, it was Akron. Right. I can't believe I second-guessed myself on that. Anyway, Raheem Johnson and Ikena Smart are both legit 6'10". That is big enough to match up with anyone in the conference. Brock Bertram next year, if he's a true 7-footer with his frame, he'll be the biggest player, mass and heft-wise, in the conference. Marshall was an absolute beanpole. If you look at Booth at Toledo, you look at Jimmy Hall at Kent State. He's 6'7". I think Forsyth must have graduated from Akron. I think all the big guys in a row have graduated from Western Michigan. All of Central's big guys are shooters. They're not going to get outsized down low. So if they can add some offensive touch, have some savvy, clean up their games, both Raheem and Smart, there's the making of a successful front court there. As John brought it up before, I think now that I think about it more, it's a little bit more desperate to get at least 10 points combined from those two, at least 10, hopefully closer to 15. We'll see how quickly that comes. I think it depends on how quickly Smart's offensive game develops.
I honestly thought Smart wouldn't have been this good on the defensive side. If you had told me that it's, 3 years now since he started playing basketball, that's crazy stuff. So the improvement is there. I'm very happy with him. I did not expect him to get as many minutes as he got so far this season. So definitely good stuff.
Yeah, I'm certainly pleased with Smart. I was almost ready preseason just to say, all right, like, lost recruit there, and that's definitely not the case. Really good. Looking ahead, UB's got what I think are really a pair of winnable games, what I think need to be a pair of winnable games, both at home against Binghamton and Montana State. And I really hope they're wins because I don't want
to Bing, I'm done. If we lose to Bing, I'm done. That's
Yeah, between the star player in last year's game against Binghamton and the circumstances of Montana State not making it to play us in the past, I want to make sure that we get both these games and we get wins, move back above 500. For comparison's sake, Buffalo is 164 in Ken Pomeroy. Binghamton is 282. They're 2-6. They have one of the worst offenses in the country, according to Ken Pomeroy, and they've had a relatively difficult strength of schedule. Montana State is 298. They've got one of the worst defenses in the country and a relatively middling strength of schedule. So we could be in for two exciting games. One a real strong defensive performance against Binghamton, who is still paying their penance for their misdeeds in recruiting from what has to be close to 8 or 9 years ago. That's Tim's wheelhouse. Tim could tell me just how long it's been since that season. From them, and Montana State, who was unwilling to come through a snowstorm that wasn't actually that bad. I'd like that win as well. I have not researched them at all. I just figured we could talk about them if you guys have anything. If you don't, that's cool. They're both home games. We kind of hit a slower part where Binghamton is this coming Saturday, 5 days from now, and then Binghamton's a full week after that. So we kind of had a long stretch, or a quick stretch of a bunch of games to start the season, then these two road games, and now we've got a much slower time through December.
Honestly, the schedule when all this turnaround happened looked like definitely it was going to be half games that we should lose, half games that we should win. Bing and Montana, no exception to that. They're just bad basketball teams that we should probably do really well against. I'm expecting a blowout win from Binghamton. If it's close, I'm going to be very upset about that. But yeah, I think the St. Bonaventure game was the only one that was on the fence on whether we should win it or not. So, so far we're right about where we're expected to be.
Yeah, I think it's I think in general we're going to see Old Dominion and St. Joe's turn out to be very, very good teams. I'd expect both of them the NIT at worst. I'm okay with a 2-point loss to St. Bonaventure in many seasons. They're a strong program with a lot of history and a strong conference. I'm not okay with it from an emotional standpoint, but from a rational standpoint, it's not a problem. And they're having positives from both Duke and Ohio State this weekend. Going in, they've got three of their next 4 games at home to close out December and close out the non-conference stuff. John, what are you thinking right now?
Oh, I was just wondering when we played Ohio State.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I said. I don't care anymore. I think the show's done.
Dig deeper, Matt.
Dig deeper, Matt. No, he went to West Virginia. I wouldn't mind playing Ohio State in basketball. We go to Columbus for everything else, it seems, when we make the postseason. But,
yeah. Might as well.
All right. I think normally we'll try to get to an hour with these shows, but today we just kind of jumped on frantically after the game because we thought it would be a cool way to start off to reboot Bowls and Beers for basketball season. As I said at the top of the show, we are going to still be going weekly for Bowls and Beers, but to ensure that the women get their due, rather than trying to split each show 30 and 30, because we'll never actually succeed at that, we're going to alternate week to week. And given how slowly things go through December, that'll give us a little more to talk about each time we get on. And through Mac Play, that'll keep us talking a little bit more big picture stuff rather than spending 20 minutes breaking down a single game. So next week, we'll be on at Monday. We might keep the 11 o'clock time from football season. We might move it up a bit. It kind of depends on who else wants to join us. We'll be talking the women, who right now are 6-2, but that's after a 6-0 start. They've had 2 pretty lopsided losses at the hands of some very good teams in Hofstra and Duquesne. By the time we speak of them next, they'll have played St. Bonaventure this coming Wednesday, and then they've actually got a pretty long break coming for exams. They're an exciting team with a very strong defense, also very young and still finding some chemistry like the men. But they're certainly worth your time. I doubt we'll have the same amount of viewers as we do for the men, but we'll have the same amount to talk about. With that, thanks for watching. This is one of our more viewed in live time episodes in a long time, which I appreciate. I'm glad it worked out doing something right after the game. I'm Matt Gertzmacher. I'm joined by John McWinney and Robbie Johnson, new guy on the blog. This has been Bowls and Beers Basketball Edition from ubbullrun.com, coming off of UB's 2 weekend losses to top 10 teams. Some good things there. Certainly some things that need improvement, but we're looking hopefully in the next 2 weeks at some much stronger performances against some much weaker opponents, get back above 500. Thanks for watching. As I said before, have a great week. If anything happens, we'll let you know about it on the blog. Have a good one.